Hi, it's Craig Hassett here from Monash University. And this is going to be a special little mindful moment. Perhaps we'd call it a mindful guide on how to keep calm and carry on during COVID-19. It's a very trying time for people all around the world, and perhaps we need something to help us during these difficult times. And mindfulness is certainly something that might help. There's certainly a lot of it's an unprecedented situation, a lot of anxiety around COVID-19. And that anxiety has manifested itself in lots of ways. There's a lot of fear. There's how it affects how we behave, so panic buying. So all sorts of things are happening which are often compounding the situation. COVID-19 is contagious, but fear and anxiety can certainly be more contagious sometimes. Now, mind you, a lot of stress it can actually increase our risk of getting infections, or if we get one, to actually be sicker than we otherwise would have been. So approaching the situation mindfully might help. It's not going to make the situation go away, but we might cope with it a whole lot better. So perhaps here's a few mindfulness tips. Firstly, the formal practice of mindfulness, a little bit of mindfulness meditation could be helpful. Start and finish the day with some mindfulness meditation. Have some little mini meditations or commas punctuating your day, for half a minute or a minute throughout the day, just to help us to stay present, stay, as it were, more calm and mindful in the rest of our day. And so the informal practice of mindfulness, living our day mindfully. That is, our worries and fears might be very complicated, but the present moment of just making a cup of tea or just driving the car or just lying in bed is not complicated unless we get drawn into a whole lot of worry and rumination and distraction. So learning to live mindfully and just keep the simple moments simple could be very helpful. The big four cognitive practices of mindfulness, perception, for example, that we often perceive stressors that aren't there, or sometimes we perceive things to be bigger than they are. Now, certainly COVID-19 is not something to take too lightly, but at the same time, the perception of fear, the perception of danger is sometimes disproportionate to the actual danger for many of us. So, for example, one way a lot of parents are so worried about, their children, and so we should be, but in terms of the relative risk of danger for kids, is almost zero mortality for kids, for example. And so just keeping things in perspective can be very helpful. And so one of the good ways to do that is to get good quality sources of information. It could be from your own health department or from government sources that provide reliable and factual information, because a lot of what circulates can blow things out of perspective. So sometimes the media, and even more so social media, can blow things out of all proportion and perspective. So perception, getting a clear perception of what's there and not making it more than it needs to be. Letting go or non-attachment. So we might experience all sorts of thoughts and fears and emotions, but if we learn to stand back from a little step or two, then we won't be quite as caught up in them, and that can be really helpful too. And the thoughts that come and go, and if we're just caught up and get drawn away by everyone that comes into our mind, we can find ourselves on an endless merry-go-round of rumination and worry. So letting go and non-attachment, standing back from it and letting a little bit of that just come and go without getting involved. Acceptance is perhaps the third of the big four cognitive aspects of mindfulness. So just being more accepting that regardless of what we'd like things to be, that sometimes they're not the way that we'd like to be. And if we add a non-acceptance of that to it, we often amplify how stressful those situations can be. So a more accepting attitude that it is what it is for now, and it may be for some time in the future, but an accepting attitude can be very empowering, giving us the energy to get involved in what we can and need to do about a situation rather than burning up precious energy in frustration about it. And staying present, the present moment. And dealing with what is a lot easier very often than dealing with what if. And so if we can, just step our way moment by moment through the day, through the week, through these coming weeks and months, then it might make it a lot easier than if we're constantly not only dealing with the present moment, but living under a cloud of worries about what the future might or might not be. So yes, we might have to run a marathon, but the marathon's only one step at a time. So if we can just come back to one step at a time, we might find it's somewhat easier than we perhaps otherwise would have experienced. Just another couple of things to mention as well, that being mindful really does mean to be compassionate. So we learn to be a little bit compassionate to ourselves and not so hard on ourselves. But I think it's a really important time to be considerate and compassionate to others. One of the things that happens when we get stressed is we get very inward turning and we get preoccupied with our own situation. And then all of a sudden we can start to be less considerate for others. And so that can be a very contagious thing as well. And I think it manifests its ways in all the panic buying, and everybody's looking out for themselves. And when we do that, of course, others can go without. So it's a good time to be considerate for others. Let care and kindness and compassion be contagious. And if that happens, then we'll experience the whole event differently. And just another couple of things, maybe not so much related to mindfulness, maybe they are, but just a few lifestyle tips too. Look after yourself. If you exercise, do some regular moderate exercise. If you eat a healthy diet, if you're looking after your sleep well, that is just looking after your general health and well-being, you're more likely to stay free of any infection, or if we get one, it's less likely to be severe. So that can be a really helpful tip as well. So anyway, we're all in this together. Certainly it's brought the whole world together one way or another, despite the social distancing. But perhaps there's few simple strategies from mindfulness perspective might be helpful for us. So thank you, and I hope it's been of some use.